Movie Inspire, presenting Pet. The movie begins and we are shown a man named Seth. The one who had just woken up had no one in his family and no one was his friend. Seth used to work in an animal control department, and the same animal was also his friend and he used to talk to them. This was all the daily routine in Seth's life. Similarly, one day when he was going home after finishing his work, he sees a girl in the bus. Seth goes to her and says hello to her, but the girl doesn't recognize him at all. Seth calls her name as Holly and tells that, "We both used to study together in school." But Holly did not remember Seth at all. Holly has a book and on asking Seth, Holly tells him that, "I write my journal on it every day." Meanwhile, Seth asks Holly to take her for coffee. But Holly tells him that, "I work in a restaurant and I already have a boyfriend." In no time Holly's stop comes and without listening to Seth's whole thing, she gets down at her stop. Seth gets frustrated and reaches his house. After this he finds Holly's profile on social networking site and extracts personal information about Holly. The next morning he goes to his office as usual. He asks his friend security guard Neat how he can impress a girl. To which Neat tells him to be confident because girls like confident boys. Then Seth gets an order from the doctor, to bring a German Shepherd dog named Lexi. Because that dog was sick for a long time and Seth brings that dog to the doctor. And the doctors are about to kill him with a poisonous injection. Because that dog was ill for a long time and was also increasing the cost of animal control. The doctor tells Seth that, if you want to take this dog, then you can take it. But Seth couldn't take care of it. Because he lived alone. That's why doctors kill that dog by giving it an injection. After which Seth burns the dog's body. Meanwhile, Seth notices the room behind the animals which had a basement inside. Very surprised to see this. After this Seth again starts collecting information about Holly. Seth gets to know about the restaurant where Holly used to work. After proper research, Seth also comes to know about Holly's likes and dislikes. Next day Seth goes to Holly's restaurant for lunch. But this time too Holly refuses to recognize him and ignores him. But then Seth asks her to accompany him to a music concert. This time Holly gets angry and leaves from there. At night, when Holly is going to her house, she feels that someone is following her. And there is no one else to follow but Seth. Now Holly goes home and tells all the things to her best friend Claire. Meanwhile, a call from Holly's boyfriend comes. He abuses Holly while drunk. Holly gets angry and cuts his call. The next day Holly sees that someone has sent her flowers. Holly thinks her boyfriend Eric might have sent her to apologize. Holly asks about this in the evening, but he refuses. Holly understands that, this work can be done by someone else. Here we also see Seth who is chasing Holly. He once again asks to take Holly on a date. Seth tells that, "I had sent the flowers." Holly gets very angry after hearing this, after which her boyfriend beats Seth very badly. And Seth gets injured, but at the same time he finds Holly's diary, on which Holly used to write his daily journal. Seth comes home and starts reading that diary. After this Seth gets to know a lot about Holly and also comes to know about a secret. The next morning Seth goes to work. And using the internet, prepares a cage for this basement. He also steals injections that paralyze animals from here. And to test this injection, he injects it into his own body. Due to which his body becomes paralyzed for some time. The next night he again follows Holly who was on her way home. Seth, seeing the opportunity, enters Holly's house and gives him an injection. After this, Holly is kidnapped and brought to the animal control department. Locked in the same cage, he starts going towards the basement. Neat's eyes fall on that box but forgets it and talks and takes Holly to that basement. When Holly regains consciousness, she sees that she is imprisoned in a cage. Holly screams loudly, but because of being in the basement and because of the noise of the animals, her voice was not coming out. She stays the same all night in the dark. Next day again Seth comes to his work and gives Holly a metal pot for toilet and some food. After this Seth reminds Holly his name. Because Holly had never tried to know his name. After this he leaves from there and does not come to Holly for 3 days. When he comes to Holly, he sees that his condition has become very bad. Seth gives water to Holly and starts leaving after giving her food. But then Holly stops him, but he does not stop and leaves from there. Holly was all alone there. Then she sees her friend Claire, who was not actually there. Now here Holly did not want to use the toilet given by Seth, but she has to use it. Meanwhile, a mouse comes here, which she crushes and kills. Next day Seth comes there, so Holly asks, "Do you want to kill me?" On this, Seth says, "No, I don't want you to die, but I can kill you when the time comes." Seth tells Holly that, "I fell in love with you at first sight and I have brought you here not to kill but to save." And saying this, Seth leaves from there. When Seth is about to leave the basement room, Neat sees him. Neat asks the reason for going inside then Seth leaves by making some excuse. Next morning when Seth comes to Holly again, Seth shows Holly's diary, in which all her things were written. After this, Seth narrates an anecdote to Holly which was written in Holly's diary. Some time ago Holly and Eric got engaged. But then Holly learns from Eric's email that, his best friend and Eric are having an affair. Because of which Holly deliberately accelerates the speed of the car and gets the car accident, due to which both of them get very injured. But Holly deliberately inserts a piece of glass into Claire's eye, due to which Claire dies. Holly tells Seth that, "I am a writer and whatever is written in the diary is a fictional story." Seth tells her that, "I also thought it was all fictional stories. That's why I went to the police station and I got to know everything about Claire's death, how she died." Seth had followed Holly for many days, so he also came to know that many people have died because of her. She had mentioned this in her diary only. She burned many people alive. Seth tells Holly that, he has brought her here so that she cannot kill other people, and stay away from the police. Saying this, Seth leaves from here. The next day when Seth comes to Holly, he sees some changes in Holly's behavior. Seth had not given anything to eat for a long time. That's why Holly asks for something to eat, but Seth refuses. After this Holly starts talking to him with love. Holly says, "Maybe I have started loving you." After this, Seth comes to Holly's talk and goes to get some snacks for her. And here Neat sees Seth coming through the basement door. After Seth leaves, Neat goes to the basement where Holly is and he sees that, a girl is imprisoned in a cage in the basement. He gets shocked. Holly sees Neat and starts asking for his help. She asks him to break the lock of the cage. But due to the strong lock, the Neat is not able to break, and at the same time Seth comes there and then Holly tells Seth to die, pointing to him. That's why Seth kills the Neat. At the behest of Holly, Seth picks up a brick and crushes Neat's head. Now Holly tells Seth all the ways to hide the death body as well as escape from the police. Seth starts doing as Holly tells him and cuts Neat's body into pieces and feeds all the dogs. Now due to the absence of Neat, the police starts looking for him and the police starts investigating from Seth. At the time of investigation, Seth gets very scared and tells Holly. When he comes to Holly, Holly starts talking to him with love. Holly tells Seth that, "If you loved me, you would not keep me in prison here." Seth says, "I love you very much." Actually Holly wanted to get out of that cage at any cost, so Holly asks for one of his fingers as proof. On hearing this, Seth gets shocked, and even though he doesn't want to, Seth cuts his finger. After this, Seth starts suffering due to pain. Seeing this opportunity, Holly picks up his knife and threatens to cut her throat. On coming to Holly's words, Seth opens the cage door and Holly leaves the cage. After this Holly cuts his throat with a knife and leaves from there. In the next scene, we see Holly with her boyfriend Eric. Seeing that Eric was still talking with his other girlfriend, Holly thinks of killing Eric, but she doesn't want to kill him. After this Holly goes to the warehouse. There was a cage. And there was a man in that cage who was none other than Seth, which was now in Holly's captivity and its condition was very bad. And here this movie ends. This film was released in 2016. Its rating on IMDb is 5.7. Hope you liked this story. Like and subscribe, may look simple for you, but for us it's very valuable.